coming, you know, it was just really getting after it. And I don't know if I want to drive in this.
We knew it was time.
Let's give it a minute.
That's kind of where I was when I started heading here. It was pretty dark, you know. But fortunately, we're all here, and it's going to be a beautiful day. It's going to be a beautiful day. So welcome to Unity of San Marcos. If you're joining us later on, seeing this video, thank you for taking the time to be with us. I'm going to open up with a song that I wrote with my wife, Faith. It's called Move in Me. Presence, holding to a dream. The world in all its essence is more than what it seems. My eyes will betray me into seeing more than one, but your spirit knows the way to wake this dream undone. When you move in me, all I can see is the perfect heart in your plan. Help me be the change in the world I wish to see, to know the unbreakable chain of the truth that sets us free and binds us here together within the love as one, shining in the light forever, shining as the sun. When you move in me, all I can see is the perfect heart in your plan. When you move in me, all I can see is the perfect heart in the plan. Return me to original creation before I fell for the separation. To me, divine inspiration, until peace returns to every nation, until peace returns to every nation. When you move in me, all I can see is the perfect heart in your plan. As you move in me, all I will be is the perfect part in your plan. It's the perfect part in your plan. And you're the perfect part of the plan. You're the perfect part in the plan. So thank y'all. And I'd like to thank God, all the saints and everything for faith, for Miss Faith Davis, not the power of faith in this instance. My partner, she's a wonderful presence in my life, and my life moves much better, you know.
Yes,
You know,
I'm
since
very
she's
happy
been
for
a
you.
part, since she's been a part of it, my life moves much better. truly appreciate her for that. So, privileged to be able to share her with y'all this morning. I was, as I said, I woke up kind of this morning and I'm like, okay, we're talking about imagination. It's like, and like I said, as I was getting ready and preparing myself to drive here and everything, I'm still trying to imagine what that's going to look like. And so as I got ready to leave Cedar Park this morning, I went to YouTube and I, searched my name, Rick Busby, imagination, to see if, some prior talks had been recorded and available on YouTube and everything. And there's some out there, but they weren't necessarily straightforwardly about imagination. So I just couldn't find one at the ready, so I just pushed the first one and started listening to some 2 different talks that I had delivered at Unity in the heart of Austin, in South Austin, a couple years back. And one of them was called Matthias and the Rag Picker. Matthias and the Rag Picker. And what that talk was about, it was about two separate things. Does anybody know in terms of scripture and everything, New Testament scripture, specifically the book of Acts? Do y'all know who Matthias is? Okay. Then we'll get to part 2 in a minute on the other thing when we get there. So let's just address Matthias. Matthias was kind of among Jesus's camp. Okay, he was what they would call a disciple. He wasn't one of the 12 apostles. He was a disciple. And after all the events of the Easter week, and even after the 40 days, which I think we're still in the 40 days before Jesus ascends, so it's like during this period when Jesus is still with them, he's preparing the apostles for kind of what comes next and everything while he's being there with them for 40 days. And so after the 40 days, passes and Jesus ascends, and now the apostles are left and remain mindful at this point in time. There were only 11 apostles, because by this point in time, Judas had already taken his own life. So their first action that the remaining 11 apostles took as sort of the official board of directors kind of meeting, and what's our first, act here? They voted to reconstitute the 12, to find a 12th apostle to fill the role that was now vacant because of Judas. And so they said, well, how are we going to figure this out? Because they had hundreds, if not thousands, of apostles. How are we going to choose, who's to replace? And so what they started doing is they started surveying, all of the followers and everything, and they were clear on the intention. They wanted to identify someone who had been there since the beginning, so to speak, in the very, very early days of Jesus beginning his ministry, and had been with them and seen all the things that they had seen, witnessed the thing, and been with them as far back as the beginning, so to speak. And they came up, they identified 2 men at that point in time. I think the first gentleman's name was Barsabbas, and the second one was Matthias. And so they identified these 2 not apostles, but disciples at that point in time, to be the 12. And so they had to decide between the 2. And what they did basically to decide between the 2 is they cast lots. And Matthias wound up being the one chosen. So he became, effectively, he's like the 13th apostle, right? So he was chosen to replace Judas to reconstitute the 12. So now that you've heard that story or that recap, have you heard that before? Were you aware of that the 12 was reconstituted? It's the very first thing they deal with in the book of Acts, the Acts of the Apostles. It's like you just go start reading at the very beginning of Acts, you'll see that kind of whole thing play out. But they reconstituted the 12 to begin the work. And so I say that to say this, is that when I had to give one of my licensed Unity teacher sort of presentations that I had to give along the way was a presentation on Matthias. and I titled it, I Am Matthias, is what I titled the talk. And what I meant by that is that in unity teachings and other, similar kinds of studies and everything, one of the things that's unique about unity teachings is that we look at all of the Bibles in all of the characters in the Bible, all of them. Think of every story that good, bad, indifferent, tragic, whatever, all of it. And from a metaphysical point of view, like all of those characters in the Bible represent me in potential, represent you in potential. Like every one of those kinds of stories that are told in the Bible could potentially be us in expression. Has anybody ever had their patience tried?
No.
Never? This is in advanced classes, it's great. But if we have those trying times where seemingly an infinite amount of patience is required of us to get to the other side, to understand how God is working in our lives. If you've done that, then you've been Job. Just the book of Job. I mean, he was God's best man, and they put him in a game basically and just tested him and tested him and tested him. Took all of his blessings and everything away, and he had to have that patience to endure. Well, that story of Job is not something isolated from us. That's not something that happened thousands of years ago that has no relevance to our lives, because a similar kind of dynamic in our own lives can express itself in a way that has sympathy and similarity to the book of Job. If you've ever been through an extended, set of travails and, travesties and different kinds of things that happen kind of one after the other, it's like that's what you're in, that dynamic of being not tested to see if you fail, but sort of sharpened. You're being given this experience because from God's point of view, you're a beautiful, perfect, powerful soul. And giving you this experience is in essence a gift. So with respect to Matthias and how I internalized that for that presentation back then was like, well, okay, I'm Matthias then. I'm potentially, one of the 12, the one chosen to reconstitute the thing. Is like, well, if you're going to be that guy, then what's that? What's that look like? What's that entail? And so, but by bringing that on, it gives me a way of framing my own intention for service in the world. Because my life mission statement, so to speak, and I've got a 25-word version of it somewhere, exactly 25 words, because that was the challenge, to write a 25-word or less mission statement. And so, because I like a lot of words, I had to use exactly 25, and I did. But it basically distilled down to three words. It was God, creativity, and service. That's basically what that life mission statement boiled down to. And so with respect to the service portion of that intention, Matthias fit real neatly into that. It's like it already had a willingness to serve and everything, so it's like I adopted Matthias as sort of, one of my, top 10 cool figures in, biblical scripture kind of thing. I was like, wow. Like here, and just even this morning, it's like being able to talk about that was being able to bring something new to you all that you had not heard yet. And so, once again, trying that on metaphysically, it's like, well, how am I Matthias? How is Matthias me? It's like, yeah, when you step up into a position of service and everything, in a position of leadership, then you're moving on a certain track at that point in time. And, to maintain that track, you do what's necessary to maintain that track. So I looked at Matthias, that was one. I want to talk about a second one that also kind of this second one came before my experience with Matthias, because I was already engaged in my unity studies by the time I encountered Matthias. But this next one, it came into play in about 97, in and around about the same time that A Course in Miracles was introduced to me, and I began looking into A Course in Miracles. So both of these books and everything kind of came in at the same time. Do y'all know the name Og Mandino? Have y'all ever read any Og Mandino books? Okay. So this one, this part is based upon Og Mandino's greatest miracle in the world. His first big seller was The Greatest Salesman in the World. And he was already kind of a successful thing before he wrote The Greatest Miracle. And the book, The Greatest Miracle, it is about his relationship after he's already become a successful writer. He happens to live in close proximity to a man who was a survivor of World War II Germany. He was not a Jewish man, but his wife and by extension his son were. They were killed. He was forced to sell his very successful business in Germany as ransom for his wife and son to be released, and he signed over the company, and his wife and son were already dead, and he didn't know it. And so he makes his way to America, and he settles in, and he kind of chooses to kind of live pretty anonymously, under the radar, keeping a low profile and everything. But he lived in this close proximity to Og Mandino, and one night Og was returning home. Bad weather and this, that, and the other, and he had a really long day and wasn't necessarily a good day, and he says he's struggling with the gate to get his car into his property and everything, and this man walks by with his dog, walking the dog, and he offers to hold the gate open so he can gain access, and then by the time he parks to turn around to say thank you to the man is gone. And they don't, didn't see him again for a few weeks. Well, this was that man. His name was Simon, and they, slowly kind of started, seeing one another and chatting, and they became, quite fast friends. Not like in the kind of, hey, let's go have a beer kind of friend, but they were just, respected, at this point in time, a neighbor, basically. Well, over the course of I won't tell you, the book is really easy to read. If you haven't read this particular one, you can literally read it in a Sunday afternoon. It takes less than 2 hours to read it, and it's pretty straightforward, and it just literally tells the story of who Og was at the time the story began, what Simon's backstory is, their interaction, and how that came to fruition. But the long story, or I should say the short story of that, is that over the course of about a year's time, maybe a little less than a year's time, they got to know each other pretty well. And Simon had a secret intention, okay? And he had adapted this thing based upon a story of the rag picker. And the rag picker was actually kind of a job, so to speak, back in the day in these small villages and small communities and stuff. And the rag picker's job was to go around all the trash heaps and find all the used rags that had been thrown away, but that still had life in them. People just didn't clean them up or recondition them or whatever. They just threw them away, and he would basically rescue these rags from the trash heap and recondition them and put them back into the flow of service and everything, put them back into service. And so Simon was kind of driven by this idea of the rag picker. And along the way, he had created this basically a private project. It's called the God Memorandum. And the God Memorandum was very, very short. In fact, if you read the book, The Greatest Miracle in the World, and you kind of accept the challenge that's offered to you at the end of the book, it will include reading the God Memorandum portion of the book, which is doable in about 5, 6, 7 minutes. Okay, but you would do that for 100 days straight, like every night before you go to bed, every morning when you wake up, whatever. You would take the 5 minutes and you would read the God Memorandum. And the God Memorandum distills down to, I won't go into that, that's a whole other kind of talk. It'd be like unpacking that, like we're unpacking the 4 agreements or the 5 principles or something like that. But basically it distills down to about 4 simple little principles. And what Simon had been doing when he created the God Memorandum, he had 100 of them published, just 100 only. And over the course of time, when he would come across a person of interest in his life, someone that he thought was a whatever, a student, or, could benefit, or just had some special quality, and he struck up this friendship with them, the friendship would ultimately lead to him giving them this God Memorandum. It was basically like a letter from God, and like one of the principles, of it was, basically you are a rare, precious, and rare gift. Like from God's point of view, there is literally no one exactly precisely like you now or ever. No one will have the same exact combination of experiences. No one will make the same choices or non-choices. Like you are as unique as a snowflake, as unique as a fingerprint. And that from God's point of view, that is rare and precious. You are rare and precious. Oftentimes we get caught up in our own sort of story and drama and, stressed or afraid or whatever the case may be. And we can have a tendency to try and separate ourselves from God, who has this awareness and intention about each one, that you're a rare, precious gift. And yet we, time and time again, kind of maybe back away from that or kind of fade, taking that fully in, that God really truly sees you as a precious, precious thing worthy of being preserved and encouraged and empowered. So that's how, like I took on the challenge, and I can describe it, but I can't describe the experience because it becomes ineffable. But basically what the 100-day thing, besides reading the God Memorandum, okay, for 100 days in a row. The other little piece of it was, I took remember those the old classic terry cloth kind of washcloths, just the basic white cotton, kind of, washcloth kind of thing that we had, just a standard garden variety, Big Mac kind of, just a white. I took it and I cut about a 1-inch square of it, and I fastened it put it on a safety pin, and then I would pin it on the lapel of whatever shirt I was wearing that day.
Yeah, I remember.
And you had to run around throughout your life for the next 100 days wearing this little, piece of dishcloth, on your thing. And when someone asked you about it, and they did, and they will, you cannot tell them what its intention is. You can't tell them anything about it. And I cannot tell you how many interactions I got in with random strangers. It was always pleasant. It wasn't anything. But I could feel when someone had clued in on, like literally energetically from across the room, I could feel when they saw that thing and the thought arised in their head that they had to know. And they would walk up to me and go, "What is that?" And I would just smile and say, "Look, don't be offended, but I can't tell you. I can't tell you." And the reason, the intention behind that about not saying what it was about, okay, was about this idea of containment. That at the beginning of the 100 days, I had kind of made set a new intention, a new mission statement for myself. That, okay, I felt like a dirty dish rag at that point in time when I was reading that book and everything, and that I had been thrown on the heap, unfairly or not, or like whatever the case may be, but I wasn't feeling, all that good about myself. But I was doing my work. I had actively and earnestly begun my work and was doing retreats and reading every book that was suggested to me, and I was working. And remember, A Course in Miracles came in around this same time. And so during that 100 days of wearing it, I still have that piece of dishcloth, by the way. I mean, dig it out of the box that it's in. It's got a little plastic zip bag that's got all these little totems in it, little things that had significance that you kind of keep. But it's just a like I said, about an inch square. It's even dirty. It's still got, like finger dirt on it. How kind of, it's dull and everything. Never even washed it. It's threadbare and everything. But it was that 100 days, because during that 100 days of containment, of reading that God memorandum every day, and then containing that, and the compounded energy, the accumulated energy as you go through that 100 days, while containing this intention that you've set for yourself in a very sacred way, a confidential, sacred way, that the energy that accumulates during that 100 days of containment and everything is inestimable. There was so much that was born during that period, and within a year of that, when I got back, like the very next year, I turned 40 and I started writing songs. This was before I came to Unity Church of the Hills or the L.U.T or anything, but it was off of the momentum of, the greatest miracle in the world. And that's basically the way that God would see you, is that you are the greatest miracle in the world. And that's what Simon's work with. Like basically by the time he had given away these 100 God memorandums to the people that he had chosen over the course of time, he's at that point in time like an apostle or a teacher of apostles, right? His discipleship, and from his framework and everything, was to go pick these people up who have been beat up or misunderstood or stressed or whatever, but the little fine-tunement, little, clean up and recondition the rag and everything, and then put them back out there into utility and service. This particular experience with Og Mandino and Simon led to another best-selling book. And that was, probably 40 plus years ago, maybe getting close to 50 at this point in time. And it's still having effects and consequences in the world. That one relationship. Course in Miracles teaches me that all relationships, if seen correctly, are holy relationships. And the holy instant is when we engage in a relationship and we let go of our personal intentions, our personal interests, our personal whatever, and we open up to the presence of Spirit, the presence of the power, and we allow for the expression of miracles while we're together and connected. And that's what creates the holy instant. That's what creates the miracles, is to be in co-creation with that. And that aligns with unity principles. Unity principle number 3. You are a powerful co-creator of this experience. You're creating your experience. I'm creating my experience. And how we determine what that experience is what is the activity of our own thinking. It's happening right in our own consciousness. Like my every response, just like I said about the gentleman who I love earlier that I had the kind of almost altercation with this week. It's like, whew, that's not who I want to be, and I know that's not who he is. Not who he is. But this is an anomaly. What's going on with him that he would express, because this is not him. And so that moment of being able to see from that ego point of view of like maybe feeling attacked or like where'd that come from, to simply looking at that going, no, this is a request for love. There's something going on with him. This is uncommon. I'm not taking it personally. This is not about me. That's about him. I don't know what it is about him, but I'm willing to sit. I'm willing to be still. I'm willing to contain how I want to react in the moment and allow it to settle in, and then take my guidance from Spirit. By the afternoon I had a meeting with him, and I just went prepared for the meeting. I didn't come there and say, well, we got to get this other stuff straightened out before I do another. Like, I didn't do that. So I just came prepared for the meeting and went in and was business. Took care of the business. And then after the business was taken care of, he made a very, personal and significant request of me as a response to what happened, without addressing what happened. And it was beautiful. It was like there was no drama. There was no need to forgive. I'd already forgiven him. So I didn't need to go through a ritual of like understanding why you did what you did. I'd already forgiven him in that moment when I was sitting there for 30 seconds with nothing to say. And this is the same thing as we're talking about today with Matthias and the rag picker, is that those kinds of roles as sort of metaphysical ways in, those are, what they have in common is an intention of service, an intention of serving others, but to serve others in a truly higher sense is an ongoing surrender for yourself personally. Because if I was still in my head personally and trying to think about how Rick is coming across about all of this stuff whenever he talks about it, I would have quit a long time ago, because it would have been, unbearable. You have to just show up and be present and let it move through, trusting that Spirit knows how this can facilitate miracles way more than me. I would want to be into specific miracles. I want a miracle for you, and I want a miracle for you. And the truth is that Spirit includes all of us. It does include you and you and you and you, but not in that same way. Like, I want to do something very, very special for Angie personally. I'm praying for Angie personally. And we get attached to that. It's like that becomes then about me being valuable because I was the one that prayed this into it. It's like, no, it's not about either one of us at that point in time. It's like, make me an instrument of thy peace. Inner peace is our daily word. Peace was a theme in the song. Ultimately, it's the end game. It's truly what we want most in our lives, is to feel safe and peaceful and happy and connected and loved and loving and peace. To arrive at peace, we have to practice the things that facilitate the creation of it. And so stories like the rag picker, stories like Matthias, they're reminders for us of a way in to do that. So as y'all move forward, we'll do a little meditation here, but as y'all move forward in your own reading and like however you do your spiritual practice, whether you do some metaphysical stuff, whether you just read, other books that are, not the Bible, and there are, plenty of people who do that. I encourage the Bible is a pretty rich collection of writings. I mean, there's pretty much everything you can think of in that one book. And taking that metaphysical perspective that every character and every story is me in potential, you begin to see, oh yeah, I didn't know that about that character. Yeah, that happened to me when I was 8. Like saying, you find those stories over and over and over, and they're all opportunities. Every outcome of every story is an opportunity for us to transform our experience. That's the point of it. Every one is an opportunity for us to transform our experience. And the goal of that, working on that, the goal of that, and the reward of that is inner peace. You are a precious, rare gift in the eyes of God from God's perspective. And if we allow that truth to really sink in and resonate and embody that within ourselves, it can't help but be transformative. It has to transform your life because it's a miraculous energy. It's an expression of love. And I'll close with this. Now, of course, the Miracle says all expressions of love are maximal, which means that every expression of love has the maximum positive effects and consequences that you can think of. It has them. So, which team do you want to play on, basically, is what it distills down to. So with that, let's turn our attention to this. If you have been joining us online here with the talk, connect with us here at Unity of San Marcos. Reverend Paul will be back very, very soon. We want to appreciate you taking the time to spend your time with us. Thank you.